history, Martin got his first grant here as a student member way back when. Martin, how long ago was that? A long time ago. So when you were in college. So we go back quite a ways, and this has been a real history for the two of them. And it's really quite amazing that this has been a journey through the Explorers Club. So we're really honored to have Pamela and Martin here tonight. And Pamela, on her own, is the person that brought Sustainability Week to New York. And she's an environmental economist. So I'd like to bring up Pamela Peters. Here we go.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm really, really honored to see all of you here tonight. You came with a rather large crowd, and I'm very pleased to be here, not for the first time, but actually for the second time. As 2 years ago for my Sustainability Week New York City, I hosted an event here. It was a movie screening with, again, Dr. Narwhal, I must be a fan, and an Inuit expert, a psychologist. It was a wonderful debate, and I'm here again, and just looking around this amazing building would be enough to attract people. But today it's a whale, it's the narwhal, who allured you here, who brought you here. And besides the narwhal, we're also going to have some experts. We're going to hear from Ian Rowan, a fantastic director who is very, very dedicated to make a remarkable documentary. And you'll see the first 20 minutes of that story. And what I mostly remarked is they were shooting a little bit less than a year ago upstairs and interviewing my husband, Dr. Nweeia. I noticed that there was a different storytelling. It was more emotional, it was more human. And I think that if you're a preservationist or if you're an adventurer or an explorer, that's the human emotional tissue. That's what makes a difference in many people's lives. Besides, of course, Mr. Rowan, we will also hear from Dr. Nweeia, probably the leading narwhal tusk expert in the world, who has been up in the Arctic 16 times. Who does that? To be deprived from food, from running water, blizzards. I mean, I hear stories that you're glad to witness, but when you hear about 120 miles, an hour of storm with very little to hold on to, you start to see different pictures of what these explorers who found a home in this place went through. The world changes with each and every one of them. The world definitely changed with Dr. Nweeia. The other expert that we will be hearing is Dr. Chris Clark. He's the founder of the Bioacoustics Lab at Cornell University, and he's focused on underwater noise pollution and the song of the whales, because the whales sing, the whales communicate, and you'll learn a lot more about that. So I hope that these people will captivate you as much as the Arctic captivated me, as I was able, as an environmental economist specialized in sustainable development, to join the last narwhal expedition to Pond Inlet under Explorers Club flag number 97. It was quite the adventure, and I was trusted with the community outreach, and I took that job very seriously, because I actually went to the Inuit Daycare Center and brought my Eco-Hero curriculum, which is to teach kids the secrets of the ecosystems of our planet, and eventually turn them into the protectors of our precious Mother Earth. A lot of new little things to give away. One is that we'll have a narwhal exhibit opening at the Smithsonian Museum in Washington on August 3rd, that again Dr. Nweeia single-handedly developed. and brought to the museum, and after persistency, because explorers and environmental economists are persistent people, they have a goal and they want to share that goal and the message. It is there at the Smithsonian for 2 years, opening on August the 3rd. What we did as well as a team is to create a new cartoon. Actually, Dr. Narwhal will meet Eco Hero. And we're going to teach kids what the Arctic is about, how climate change is affecting the Arctic, because unfortunately the poles are hit twice as much by climate change than other parts of the world. I had an interview with Joe McInnes. 40% of our Arctic ice is gone, has been lost in the last 40 years. I already talked about Canada. I talked about Joe McInnes, who's Canadian, and both my husband and I have been honored to be representing America during the 150th anniversary of Canada under British Crown, which is celebrated this entire year. We were up in Ottawa. And I know that there's a distinguished guest. It's Ms. Lauren Hurst from the Canadian Mission to the United Nations. I want to welcome her here in person as well. And all other attendees here and people in the audience equally so invited to witness a wonderful program. And we're going to start with the piece that Ian Rowan has created and shared with us today. Here is the Narwhal's Wake.
But there's a story of the narwhal, how it became, how it got the horn. There's this old mean grandmother, mean to his blind grandson, mean to his granddaughter, and she's always giving them hard times, letting them do hard labor, and always telling the blind child, you're nothing but blind, and so forth. And the blind boy starts walking and with the sister, and they go into this lake so that the boy can receive his sight. And so the boy goes in the lake, and he is told by a loon that he will receive his sight. And so he goes in the lake, submerges, comes back up, and he gets asked, "Can you see now?" And he goes, "I can see a little bit of light." And then he goes back in the lake, second time, comes up, "Can you see now?" And he goes, "No, I can see a little bit outline of something," because he's been blind and don't know what the land looks like. And then the third time he goes up, "Yes, I can see everything." And then he gets asked, "Can you see the lemming over there?" And he goes, "No." And then back into the lake, comes back up and asks, "Can you see now?" "Yes, I can see the lemming across the lake." "Now you can see," they go. He goes home pretending he's blind, and he doesn't tell anyone that he can see now. And the grandmother is being mean to him, and whales are passing by, and the grandmother tells the grandson that he's going to harpoon a whale and throw the harpoon when she tells him to, because she thinks he's blind. And so the whales are passing by, but first they tie the rope of the harpoon to the grandmother. So the whales are passing by, and the grandmother says to harpoon that whale, a small one, but he can see now. And he harpoons the biggest one instead. And so after he harpoons it, the grandmother, because the rope is tied to her, she gets towed by the whale, and she's in the water now and being dragged. And so she's being dragged and going to die, but her hair starts shaping like a narwhal tusk, going round and round and round, because she has long hair, and women traditionally had long hair. So it becomes, that's how narwhals got their tusk. That's our legend there.
I have these recordings of all these sounds. What are they? People who listen and pay attention, such as the Inuit and the Inupiat, they were able to tell me what the sounds were under the ice when they had never used a tape recorder. They'd never had a hydrophone. They never had a battery system that would require them to lug it out on the ice. You know what they used? They used their paddles. They would take the paddle, the broad end of a paddle, and put it into the water, and take the end of the paddle, the butt end of the paddle, and put it up against their jaw, and they would listen. And it was a very humbling experience when I was out on the ice thinking that I was Mr. Technology. I had my Nagra tape recorder, I had everything I needed, and I recorded all these great sounds from the jungle underneath the ice. And the elder nodded his head, looked at me knowingly, and then identified every one of the voices in the symphony. And I was like, how did you know? I didn't ask him that. And as he walked me out of his tent, he went over to the water, took the paddle out of his sealskin boat and put it up against his jaw, and then handed me the paddle. And I listened. Very humbling, but inspirational.
From an appreciation of the standpoint of the link between what we get from traditional knowledge and the value that that brings to our science, that this is a fluid relationship that we see and understand that can be valuable for both. So it can be valuable for the Inuit and be valuable for science as well, both to direct the science and also to inform the science.
We have some legendary animals that people dream about, like the unicorns, for example, but we have something better than unicorns. We have something that's real, and it's the novels. And we're lucky enough to still have some of them.
You know, one of the things that has bothered me for years is not only do we drive animals into extinction, but we forget that they were ever there. We forget that there used to be belugas in Long Island Sound, the Atlantic gray whale, and they just sort of disappear and without any thought going to them. And this is what's happening now with many other species. They'll disappear and we'll forget that they were ever there.
So the most surprising aspect of studying the narwhal is for people to really understand that this animal actually exists, that it's actually on the planet with us.
What we are dealing with here is a human rights infringement. The United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People lays out human rights, in particular for Indigenous people, and how they have very specific subsets of human rights. And one of those is the right to self-determination. And foundational to the right of self-determination is the right to provide or withhold free, prior, and informed consent to any development proposals that might affect Indigenous people. And in this situation with seismic surveys, it's really clear that Inuit have withheld their consent.
Our life is at stake, you know, like our culture is at stake from all the seismic cannon mapping. Seismic cannon mapping that they want to do in Baffin Bay and Davis Strait is shooting air guns that are over 100,000 times louder than a jet engine. And they would be doing that for 5 years during the ice-free season from July to October. They would be blasting air gun every 15 seconds, every day, all night.
The use of these high-intensity air cannons has effectively entrapped the narwhal populations as the waters freeze over. So what results is an ice entrapment. And there have been successive strandings in 2008, 2009, and 2010 that have resulted in significant mortality for narwhals in those waters.
So if you imagine yourself standing on the back deck of a ship which is towing this set of air guns, and they all explode simultaneously, the ocean would literally lift up and down. It's a hammer. It's an underwater acoustic hammer. And that energy, most of it propagates down, goes into the seafloor, and then reflects off of different structures in the seafloor. But it's an explosion that is essentially as loud as you can possibly make it. It's a bomb.
It was particularly frustrating for the community members to hear that seismic blasting doesn't have serious effects on the marine mammals because prior experience of the previous generation has taught them otherwise. And as we know, a deaf whale is a dead whale. A deaf narwhal is a dead narwhal because these animals rely so much on their auditory perception for survival.
We're opposed to it because seismic cannon mapping can potentially, they say potentially, so I say it, but kill narwhals.
If we look at the arrays of typical seismic blasting that's done today for mapping of some of these natural resources, typically there's 3 sound-producing mechanisms that produce roughly 250 decibels of sound. So if you add those up and get 750 decibels, and understand that at 90 decibels we do irreparable damage to human hearing, imagine what it does to narwhal hearing.
I'm particularly concerned because some people have come to the conclusion, the premature conclusion, that it's safe to set off a bomb every 10 seconds for weeks and months at a time, when we do not yet know the consequences of that imposition, that invasion into the ocean, the living ocean. So imagine this. So imagine you're living in a city. I could use New York City as an example. So we all know that there's Manhattan, one of the main boroughs of New York City. So imagine that if all summer long, every 10 seconds, there was a spaceship 1 football field length above you. And every 10 seconds it set off an explosion, and all summer long it just went up the west side and came back down, turned it down at the Battery, came back up every 10 seconds all summer long, 100 feet above your head. Excuse me? Wait a minute, what? That's what we do. What is the evidence that it's safe to live in that place when that ship is setting off an explosion every 10 seconds all summer long? Not much, right? Because we have not scientifically collected the evidence one way or another at the scales of this insult.
As a mayor, they told me, you got to do everything to stop this because it could be the end of our lives. And, you know, I felt like that too, like, how are we going to live? You know, like, we're going to have a land that has no whales, that has no seals or narwhals, and you know, we're desperate, you know, desperate to stop this.
One of the reasons I was so interested in working with the Clyde River Solidarity Network is that I think it sends a really loud and clear political message that if the government of Canada and the oil industry tries to proceed with oil development in the Arctic without listening to Inuit concerns and without doing development on the terms set forth by Inuit, that there's a lot of people in southern Canada and in the international community and a lot of different organizations from a lot of points of view that are going to stand up with Inuit to fight for their rights and make damn sure that none of this development proceeds without Inuit consent.
One thing I've learned from being involved with this legal battle is that anyone can make a difference. If you believe in an issue passionately, you'll find a way. You'll find people to work with. You'll find the resources that you need. if you keep at it and you try your best, anyone can change the world.
It would be so horrible to tell our children one day, you know, there used to be those animals in the ocean. They used to sing, they used to be magical, mystical. And 100 years from now, they would say, no, they never existed. This is like the legend of the unicorn, you know, something that people say they used to be. I don't want to live in that world, really. I don't want my children to live in that world.
If we continue the way we are with resource development, the narwhal won't be the only thing that becomes a mythical creature in the future.
This feeling of, you know, being taken seriously, you know, being treasured, and that's what we got from what we're doing now. From what we thought was the whole world just out to get us, we found that it's not. There are people that are with us, supporting us. And to us, that's nuglingnuk, that's love.
Since you've done, 20 years of field research and whatnot, can you describe what it's like to see these animals up close and personal?
You know, it's weird. You could ask me that question 100 times and I probably wouldn't have that reaction, but for some reason, just now, just here, you know, it's the emotion, I think, of this place too. You know, you're in a room that really thousands of explorers from all over the world have planned their work literally within these walls. Everyone that you've read about, everyone that you've seen some documentary film or movie about, and to be asked a question about what propels someone to do their work within a building like this, I think is in some ways humbling for me. Yeah, so.
Well, the most humbling person is my husband. The talents, I can write a book about that. That's another book. But first we have the Narwhal cartoon. We want to hear from Ian. He's going to talk a little bit about the experience. And I don't know if there's a handheld microphone or a seat. I know you're going to stand here or you want to be... Yeah, sure. All right.
This brief. This all started because of one Inuit, one man in a tiny hamlet in the remote regions of the Arctic. Jerry Natanin became the voice of his community and his people by standing up for his indigenous human rights to protect and vouchsafe the ecosystem that their lives depend upon. International oil companies wanted to bomb their waters for the next 5 years in search of oil and profits, telling them that it's perfectly safe technology. But prior generations, and even his own knowledge, told him a different story a story of deaf seals, entrapped narwhals, and marine wildlife fleeing the areas around seismic survey mapping. Through a small group of impassioned people grew a pretty big movement, the Clyde River Solidarity Network, that counts amongst its members Greenpeace, Amnesty International, I Don't Know More, scientists and celebrities that lend their expertise and global outreach to bring this story to the world. Many people, about 25 to 30% of people that I have met on this journey have never heard of narwhals, think they're extinct, or believe that they are mythological creatures like a unicorn. Go ahead and tell somebody you went to a narwhal talk and see what their response was. Because this myth, but they're real. They're known as the unicorns of the sea because the myth originated from seamen seeing these strange creatures in the north. And they are rare and wondrous, and whales that should engender awe, wonder, and conservation. We have the opportunity to bring awareness to the existence of narwhals and to shed light on the dangers that now face the species, along with every other marine mammal in Baffin Bay. With this knowledge that there's a chance to inspire people to help vouchsafe the future of the narwhal in the Arctic. Now their case rests under the gavel of the Supreme Court of Canada as they fought the National Energy Board, appeals courts, and international conglomerates that believe it's their right to extract the resources of the Inuit. We hope this story galvanizes the public to stand with Clyde River, scientists that decry this dangerous survey practice that has just been, was banned on the Atlantic seaboard and has just been overturned by the current administration, and the generations to come to preserve this remote species. We're still in production of this film, so this is just a version of it. There's a portion of what we filmed so far before our central story and the Arctic expedition to Clyde River to interview the community members, join the Inuit on the ice floes during their annual hunt, and capturing of underwater and aerial footage of narwhals in the wild. We plan on filming an ancillary part with a 360-degree underwater camera so that students and hopefully museum goers at maybe the National History Museum can have an immersive virtual reality experience of swimming with the unicorns in the sea. This has been a wonderful journey, making this film from crowdfunding for the initial shoot and meeting Jerry for the first time. It was very inspiring, to what we call fin raisers, where artists and community members have come out in support of the narwhal's continued existence, and to donors and members of the media that want to further spread the story. And through that, we've been honored to have the Redford Center fiscally sponsor this film, have Appian Way, Leonardo DiCaprio's production agency, interested in co-producing it and finishing it. And I'm greatly indebted to these two scientists, amongst others, who bring decades of research, passion, love, and creativity to their work. I'm so inspired to help bring their collective stories to the world. I'd like to thank Pamela Peters for organizing this event and under the aegis of the Sustainability Week in New York City. Without this, it would probably have happened. Thanks, and to everyone involved in the production, Pete and Kat and everyone else. Thanks. And now, Dr. Nweeia.
No, that's okay. I'm going to stand. Yeah, everyone can hear me okay, right? Yeah, good. I can't tell whether it's this primate's eyes, that are keeping me out of the corner, or. But I'll try this. You know what? This is more personal, right? So that's Flag 97. My wife and I on the expedition in 2015, but 11 other flags were carried. This was from 2011, and the team we had in Tremblay Sound up near Pond Inlet. Primarily, I've been involved in land-based work, and we typically would catch whales about 200 yards off the shore. We have a very immediate response team, so literally within an air horn, I would say within 10 minutes, we have brought in a whale and assembled all our equipment on the land to be able to do our work. And within about 30 to 40 minutes, the whale is set free. So it's very quick, it's very rapid. We literally are almost sleeping in dietary constraints to figure out how they're going to work. Now narwhal have an unusual range. They're really circumpolar, and they don't really go much below the Arctic Circle. And if they do, it's a very odd event. I mean, we've all read about the one that was in Belgium last year. There have been others that have wandered, but certainly that's not their normal path. And this is primarily where the work that I do is. So it gives you a little bit more graphic location. I don't have a pointer here, but you can see Baffin Island on the slide to the left there, and Arctic Bay and Pond Inlet. And then these are the actual campsites primarily that I've worked out of. Though for the last 18 years, I've been to roughly, I would say about 12 different sites, all through northwestern Greenland and northeastern Baffin Island. And this is some of the landscape. You know, this is our version of what the gorgeous nature brings. And really, to make you want to care about something, you have to love it. Because then, if you love it, then if it's missing, you're going to have some passion. You're going to have some feeling about it. Otherwise, if we're just reading a book or listening to somebody, it's just going to be that evening's entertainment, and you're going to go on with your life the next day. But these are some of the panoramas in this environment. They're just literally stunning. I remember when I was in the U.S. and I got my first introduction to the Grand Tetons, and I thought, wow, what an incredible mountain range. And then I went up to Baffin Island and saw this. I mean, it's miles non-stop of Grand Tetons. Fortunately, I had one of the world's foremost photographers happens to live in our area, a guy by the name of Joe Meehan. He's done about 27 books on photography. He's considered the photographer's photographer. And he just came to my office one day and asked me, I said, you know, I went up to the Arctic, I showed him some terrible pictures. But he looked at them for a moment, he said, when are you going up next? And I said, why? He goes, I'd like to go up with you. And I said, you know, normally I go by myself, but I said, I've never been asked by someone like you before, so I'll take you up on it. So we were able to have these opportunities because, you know, these are just stunning photographs. This was by another gentleman, Glenn Williams, because the people are also as endearing as obviously the place where they're living. You see the adaptation of furs, for example. When I first went up there, I had a heavy parka that I came up with all my equipment, and I remember an Inuit was shouting. He said, "What'd you bring for your jacket?" And you know, I showed him this big down jacket, and he just kind of smiled. I heard some Nweeia took words in the house, and later this big caribou jacket was brought to me, and they said, "This will be your jacket." This is the kind of work that I would be doing. I'm in the water there, obviously in black, and I literally take hospital-grade equipment and make floating laboratories, which we've all engineered. I have live wires going to the shore because it's all powered by generators because I gave up on the reliability of most of the battery-powered instruments. Although lithium-ion batteries proved to be a little bit more reliable later in the work. This is the evolutionary chart of toothed whales. And there's clearly one that doesn't fit the diagram. You know, you can't even get it to scale on the diagram. So you have to think like, okay, if nature really is about, you know, explaining survival of the fittest, and how we do adaptation, then why did this happen? You know, what's going on here? And being in the world of teeth, I started out with an interest in human teeth, but I use this animal as an example in my talks, and I just figured out, I don't think anybody knows what's going on here. And the more I read about it, the less sense it made. This is the only evolutionary link we might have to a narwhal. This was an animal called Odobenus cetops, lived off the coast of Peru in primarily freshwater, had 2 tusks, both equal in length. And other than that, it's not like the elephant. You know, when you see the whole historic version of how elephants adapted over time, we don't have anything like that for narwhal. This animal just appears. We don't really have any good sense of it. Why, where, how? None of these questions have really been answered. Remember I showed you those pictures before about how all these great animals, like the hammerfish, had things that were adapted for diet? Well, there's a huge body of literature that shows that the structure and form and morphology of teeth are related to how you eat, the things that you eat. Okay, so let's apply that to narwhal. This is their diet, big fish, and that's their mouth. Not one tooth in their mouth, okay? So, and it gets more curious because narwhal have the ability to form 12 teeth in their mouth at birth. They have that ability. The tooth buds are there. You can see them embryologically. And all of a sudden, they're genetically silenced at birth. So something in the evolutionary paradigm says, no, 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 no. We don't need all these teeth to chew our food and bite our food. What we would rather have is a 9-foot tusk that perforates through our upper lip, is horizontally impacted, and sticks out into the Arctic Ocean. That makes sense to us. Okay, so this is something that has defied, really, evolution in so many ways. So we brought 2 samples up because I've been looking at the spiral as well, because that's obviously a curious mathematical model. We'll take this to a person, I don't know if you folks are in the mathematics world, but Stephen Wolfram has expressed some interest in trying to figure out, this spiral and how it applies to the whale, because that's obviously as curious. It's the only spiral tusk in nature. And the one thing you realize in science is that you never use the only. You never use it's the one, it's the only one. The narwhal, you can hang your shingle on that, no problem. There's no animal that really comes close to so many of the features. And this is me on the ice working, collecting samples on an earlier expedition. This is some of the later work. This was 2012. I figured out a way to get rid of the floating laboratories and work with a Holter appliance. For any of you that know people with heart conditions, they have to wear these for a day. These work great on narwhals. They're light, they're easy, lithium-ion battery. I mean, holy cow, I went from a huge floating laboratory to this thing, which was great for me. And I got most of the data I needed for the experimental work I was doing just using this particular appliance. And then what I would do on one side, just so you understand the experiment model, is I would hook up a gasket on the side here to a tusk. That would be sealed, and we would introduce solutions of various salinity, basically going to a very high saline concentration and fresh water, and alternating it. And on the other end, would hook up physiologic equipment. So we hooked up an electroencephalogram for brain activity, hooked up an electrocardiogram for heart activity. The electroencephalogram was hard to work with because there was too much background noise, but the heart rate actually worked. We also looked at electric current, very mild electric current against this tusk, and also found significant findings of heart rate as well. We didn't have enough samples to produce a paper on this, but this would be something that would be an ongoing study. And this is the kind of work to develop this kind of scientific model, because obviously you don't have a way of working with something. A beluga is the closest relative. So I would go up to SeaWorld, hook up, in this case, electroencephalogram, and I was working with photo response. And I actually could get response. But that's because I got a great, lovely beluga who's willing to sit still for me. Not in the middle of the Arctic Ocean with waves splashing, and a narwhal is probably not overly happy to see me. So, but don't get confused by all this science, because all of us have good relationships with whales. So we're not all just scientists working kind of blindly in this paradigm. But what I found, and the work that really kind of transformed what we did, on the surface of this 9-foot tusks are roughly 6 billion connections between the external environment and the internal nerve of this tooth. So this is a probe. This is a sensory organ, and we actually found conclusive evidence between the work that we were doing with these saline gradients to show it. It's hard to imagine that tusk is innervated over its entire length. I happened to meet a Greenlandic, one of the assistants on one of the expeditions who was very adept at being able to extrapolate a nerve out of a tooth. I've never seen anyone do it like this. Typically it would break. But this is a lovely slide because you don't really appreciate when you look at this hard structure. There's one upstairs, there's one, I think, over the bar. But if you look at those, there's no way in the world you would envision that thing is innervated over its entire length. This, on the other side, is one of the openings, magnified at 50,000 power. So this is a tubule that goes from the outside, 6 million of these connections, to the central nerve. We did dissections of the narwhal at the Smithsonian, and indeed found the same pattern for humans, that this information goes directly to the brain. Now, for those of you who have gone to the dentist or have had a cold ice cream and you had receding gums, our teeth are sensory too. All teeth are sensory organs. And somehow, over the biologic question of how teeth have been shown for their adaptation, we think of them as chewing or biting, but they've all been sensory, and that's how they really adapted. And it's this animal that can help us learned a little bit of that lesson. This was just showing some of the outer layers because, you know, one of the other extraordinary things about this tooth is cementum, which is a layer underneath your tooth exposed area that connects your bone and your tooth, is only covered with cementum. In the narwhal, the tusk is almost covered its entire length with cementum. So this is the work we found. The heart rate indeed was at 40 parts, salinity. Normal salt water that you might be swimming in is about 36 if you were going to the beach. We did it at a higher rate because we wanted to get just one variable that we could show was being sensed by this whale. And indeed, that's the heart rate of a narwhal. So I'm happy to say I was the guy that put the heart rate of a narwhal on a slide. And this was the model that we proposed. This was a feature cover for the Anatomical Record in 2014. And we kind of spun this narwhal tusk and really unraveled this mystery in a way that hadn't been thought about before. And what's interesting about science is you can work a lot of different ways in science, but a lot of people work with the observation and some people try to fit it in all these nice neat categories. But really what you want to do is follow the mystery. You just want to follow the observation wherever it takes you. And in this case, it takes you in directions you would have never anticipated. But basically, this shows the whole mechanism. And it's the same mechanism that was hypothesized by a Swedish guy, Martin Brandström, in the 1950s. He spent 40 years of his life just trying to show the sensory function of teeth. And still, it was a theory. It was a theory after 40 years. And even today, that same theory is proposed. But inside of these nerves are C pain fibers. So obviously, we all know that pain is something that's conducted when we go to the dentist. But in addition, have sensory A fibers. Now, A fibers are things that can help us learn about information that we're actually contacting. And it's interesting because as I gave talks, I had an archaeologist come up to me and say, until you gave your talk, I never really understood it, but my mother could tell the difference between a bone and a pottery shard by biting it. That was her test in the field. So you have this sensation, certain people adapt to understand it. So this news went all over the planet. We were the cover of the New York Times in 2005, the Science Times, but 4 documentaries from National Geographic, 2 from the BBC. And then we have to think, so why is the news important? Why do we care? Okay, so we found this thing. So it goes at another level. And this is going back to the fact that nature provides more questions than we have, more answers than we have questions for. So there's little spherules on the whiskers of this seal. I don't know if you can see them very well. But those spherules, until about 10 years ago, nobody really knew what those were. They're motion detectors for a seal. Seals can detect motion hundreds of yards away through these little spherules. Now that's cool. That's a cool whisker, right? The walrus, another great example. All through time, people thought that walrus used their tusks to knock mollusks and get the meat out of them and then suck them up. No, walrus have a much more sophisticated way of doing it. They have these little suckers on the side. These things elongate. They can penetrate inside the mollusk and suck the meat right out of them. Cool, right? So, other aspects of this tooth that we found were incredible was just the material itself. The guy over here is Fred Eichmiller. He was former director of the Papenburger Research Center at the National Institutes of Standards and Technology in Washington, D.C. Helped me do a lot of the laboratory analysis, and we found that narwhal tusk material on the planet has the most strength and flexibility of any material on the planet that's ever been discovered. And when you think about this aspect, it's really astounding, because typically when you find something that's strong, it's not flexible. Likewise, if it's flexible, it's usually not strong. So to find something that has these in extreme has tremendous applications for material science. So indeed, we have a group in California right now cloning narwhal tissue for this exact purpose, to see how functionally, in terms of biomimicry, this material might be used. This is a technique, it's got way too long of a fancy name, but it's called Fourier Transform Infrared Microspectroscopy. Yeah, I know, right? But what it really does, teeth are basically made of mineral and collagen, and the ratio of those two things can be found by this particular analysis. And what we found was the narwhal tooth was actually built inside out. Our teeth are hard on the outside, and as you get closer to the inside pulp, they get softer. Narwhal are again, the opposite. They have a soft outside coating, and it gradually gets very hard. In fact, the coating around the pulp is almost analogous to steel. That's how hard it is. And so we did different anatomical versions. These were reconstructions we did. We did CT scans, we did MRI scans, because we were trying to figure out the growth and development of this tooth over time. And these are the people that gave us a lot of the insights when we talked about traditional knowledge. I'm just going to give you one quick story because I love the one that Chris had on the film. I thought it's just brilliant. You know, it just gives you every aspect of what it really means and the significance of it. But I was out on the land with a hunter. One of the first seasons I was there, we were out on the land for 2 weeks on an ice floe, and two film teams were there, one from National Geographic and a German film team. And they had sleds going back and forth, and they had every piece of scientific equipment you could imagine. They had hydrophones, they had everything. And we were just in one place, standing still. So I didn't say anything to the hunter I was with. It was just he and I, by the way, on the ice. Finally, I get the courage after a couple of weeks, and I just calmly say, do those guys know something that we don't know? And I remember him looking at me for a discerning moment. And he said, they can go wherever they want. The narwhal will be coming here. So that wasn't reassuring to me though, because you know, again, after about I would say about 4 or 5 days after that, thousands of narwhals came, and when we went back to the camp, the two film teams didn't see one, not one. So we've done maps because we showed migration patterns changing. And I actually developed a knowledge model because I really figured out that science and traditional knowledge really don't know how to talk to each other. I've been to conferences where they have these, and I've been straddling both these kind of disciplines, and nobody in the National Science Foundation really wants to own me. They just say, you should go to the science part, and they go, you should go to the social science part, and the social scientists in a science congress are stuck in some closet somewhere. You have to spend your day finding the room they're in. And so I was trying to figure out, like, why can't they talk to each other? What's wrong? And really what it is that they think completely opposite. I mean, you couldn't be more opposite in thought process. Scientists are reductionists. We're trying to isolate the variable, the one thing we're looking at. Inuit don't even know what you're doing. They're like, if you ask them to say something about an observation like a narwhal tusk or like hunting for narwhal. Oh, okay. I was told to stop the scene. So I'm almost done. That's good. So in order to answer the question, we're in the midst now of doing a large collaborative genetic study. It's the largest cetacean genetic study. We've worked with the Broad Institute, the people that did the Human Genome Project, and we've sequenced and assembled the full narwhal genomes to find out the kind of instruction manual for the narwhal. But again, if you want to know how important something is and the work that Ian is doing with helping to bring this message across, you have to love it, you have to care for it, and you have to understand some of the insights and the valuable questions that we get to ask to this animal. Thanks.
Well, after this very emotional, personal, testimonial, and research, we're going to hear from Chris Clark. I think he's setting up. And then we actually have to head out to the airport, Martin and I, in 10 minutes. I don't know how we're going to do that. We have a plane to catch to France, but we'll figure it out.
I think we need to have another evening.
Yeah. There you go.
I too have a plane to catch. That was fantastic. Can you hear me? I prefer not to go walk around with this thing like that. You hear me?
Yes.
It's a conference. Higgins Hall 1, HH1 TMA. T stands for Truro, MA stands for Massachusetts. I'm from Cape Cod. HH1TMA. So I'm going to have to keep this really short, and I think someone should reorganize or organize a second evening, because this discussion, I think there's probably a fairly, we're like Lake Wobegon in here, right? You're here because you're interested, we're here because we're passionate. We're passionate about a lot of different things, and I'll start crying too. Because we're in trouble, right? Seriously. Okay. I'm a bioacoustics engineer, is the way this one. It's really one. Oh, yeah, okay. And I have an affinity to New York because when I was 9 years old, I was taken from my house in Wellesley, Cape Cod, and my three uncles all went and sang in the Cathedral of St. John the Divine, which is up on Amsterdam and 110th. We always sang in the car. I came from a very musical family, especially on the Cape. When you have parties, someone's going to bring out a pair of spoons and start playing spoons. Someone's going to be singing, right? And so I was brought up in a very rich environment of poetry, language, music, etc., right? But I sang in this cathedral starting at 9 years old until I was 13. Voice lessons twice a day. Sang in the cathedral morning song and evensong. 2 major services on Sunday. And by the way, I'm not an Episcopalian. Although they tried to get me to be communicated with whatever that term was. I became a Quaker when I was 10 years old. A friend. But it was in this edifice. It's a magnificent building. If you want to hear resonances, you want to hear reverberation, if you want to engage in this phenomenal glorified indoctrination of your brain, your auditory cortex, this is the place to do it. Here's another experience, and I'm going to run out of time. But when I was 9 years old, we were introduced to Benjamin Britten's Ceremony of Carols. Some of you may know it's a very complex piece of work. The boys, soprano choir, we sang behind the altar. The men sang in their places on either side. They came in cantors. Alec Whiten was up there at the organ. In order for us to see his conducting, we had to look through a mirror. So we had that inversion. There's a long time delay in the cathedral. So in other words, my brain was being shaped for 4 years in a way of listening that was completely natural to me, right? We all grow up in different places. I thought it was perfectly normal to be tied to a tree with a sheep when I was a boy. Well, I was a little boy. I don't like sheep. But this experience shaped my brain. I see and sound, okay? I'm very exquisitely tuned into what I'm listening to and how I hear things. So, the short story I'm going to be able to tell you now is shaped by my early experiences, my very early experiences. So as a bioacoustics engineer, what does that mean? Well, I listen to and study the sounds and songs of life, right? Whether in the ground, on land, in the sky, in water, everywhere. And these experiences have taken me to some of the most remote places on this planet. From Argentina to the Arctic, to Central African Republic, to Brazil, to, you name it, right? And in all those places, I listen. And what I hear is the singing planet. Some of the tiniest insects you can imagine stridulate on milkweed pods or on goldenrod, right? And what are they doing? They sound like, rap musicians. They sound like a juggler. But everywhere you listen, you will hear song. So I was not thinking I was going to be a bioacoustics engineer growing up. I was in biomedical engineering. I was in a double degree, PhD, MD, blah, blah, blah program and all that kind of stuff. But through a professor that I had at Stony Brook University, I took a class in animal behavior. And I walked into this class, and there's this guy talking about bees dancing, wolves howling, whales singing, spiders making webs, and thinking, I can get 3 credits for this. That's neat, right? Anyway, I ended up meeting 2 of the world's leading whale scientists back in 1972, Roger and Katie Payne. They just published the first record of Songs of the Humpback Whale. And they asked me if I would join them on a National Geographic expedition. So I took a leave of absence from med school, and I thought, it's a once in a lifetime, right? When is someone going to ask me to go on a Nat Geo expedition? It's only 3 months, so I said yes. We lived in tents on this beach. We ate each night out in the campfire beneath the Southern Cross. And I awakened every morning to the sounds of whales snoring off the beach, sea lions and sea elephants and penguins, right? It was magical. And it was in this magical place that Roger, on the left, obviously, Roger told me about his hypothesis, right? And his hypothesis that he just published with an acoustics oceanographer who was told was that prior to modern shipping and all the noises that ships make, the songs of blue whales and fin whales, these are the 2 largest animals that can live on this planet, the songs of those animals could be heard across an ocean. I was, here I am, 23 years old. I thought, this is sort of interesting. It's sort of like spider webs and, wolf owls. And I was, enchanted by it, but I didn't quite believe it. But I never went back to medical school, because when I came back to the United States after 3 months, I went and pursued an advanced degree in electrical engineering, because I knew what I wanted to do, right? And that was my introduction. Suddenly, my vocation and my avocation could be all intertwined into a magic carpet. And song and sound were the carpet. After Argentina, I went to the Arctic. This was in 1979. I was still finishing my PhD. But this was the Alaskan Arctic. This is Point Barrow, Alaska. So, and I studied bowhead whales. Bowheads are a very close relative of right whales. So this was my introduction to the high cold north. And this is in the springtime when the whales migrate. And in that context, and you've heard this sort of story about my arrogance and whatnot, but it was in this context that I observed these animals doing things that defied my imagination. These animals, and all their kin there, will migrate in complete darkness through massive fields of ice, in which sometimes they will die. Right? So very strong selection pressure to get it right. And I'm not talking about thin ice, 4 or 8 feet thick. I'm talking about ice that's 40 to 60 feet thick. Pieces of ice the size of Manhattan that are moving around, and at half a knot, a mass of that size, when it hits another thing like Brooklyn, a collision, is basically tectonic plates. Okay. And I also use this example when someone tries to bait me into a discussion about climate change or global warming. I say, well, I just know that when I first went to the Arctic in '79, we lived on the ice, 20 miles offshore. It was thick. It was so deep it would ground itself, it would stick its keels into the bottom of the ocean. Today, it's gone. We did our last census a few years ago. It's so thin, you can't live on it. I better go to get a air from It was in the Arctic that I made friends with retired Navy Captain Bill Ellison. Bill is an expert in underwater oceans. Now just think of this in terms of scale. This is an animal that works in the very, very low frequency. A narwhal works in the very, very high frequency. The whale, the blue whale, is doing the same thing that a narwhal does when it's using echolocalization clicks to map and to see its world. Well, in this case, this animal is using wavelengths that are as long as a football field, right? And as loud as the loudest thing that humans can ever introduce, other than dogs. Anyway, I was intrigued enough that I said, so Chuck, could you follow one of these animals around? Could you track it? And of course, he looked at me like, is this a joke? I mean, a submarine is 7 orders of magnitude quieter than a blue whale. A blue whale is out there like a Pavarotti on the corner going, hey baby, hey baby, hey baby, right? Easy. This is what he showed me. This is a trackable blue whale that Chuck first tracked. This is Old Blue, we named it. First picked up off the New England seamounts up in the upper left, right. Came down past Bermuda, that's right in the middle. Came down into the lower part of the North Atlantic, right. There's Florida, Cuba, right. Turned around, and in that part where I say 10 days, we went into a cold water ring of the ocean, which we think is probably highly productive. So the animals stayed there, maybe feeding for 10 days, and then disappeared up into the Gulf Stream. Right? I'm thinking, wow, Chuck didn't need to tag the whale, he didn't need to jump on the whale, he didn't need to touch the whale, he just had to listen to it. Anyway, I'm running out of time. So, what I want to end up with is this. I'm going to need you to hit the button now. That's a seismic air gun array going off. You hear the sonar, the ship's sonar. Here it is. This is what's going on. I'll show you another animation. This is 100,000 square miles. 250 by 400 miles of space, and I'm mapping in this not the temperature of the ocean, but the acoustic noise, loudness from these explosions. But at the time, I wasn't doing it to look for explosions, I was doing it to look for the songs of whales. So I'm going to, if you click on that, okay, hold on just a second. This is an animation. It's 1 week. It's 1 week from the, oh, here it goes. Okay, every 10 seconds I open the frame, I map the acoustic noise. Those little red, larger, smaller red dots, those are singing whales. And then watch what happens down here. Bam. Here it comes again. Bam. It was like, what the blip is that? So we go into the acoustic data, we listen to it. There's a seismic air gun exploration mapping exercise, not an exercise. They're searching for oil and gas down here. 100,000 square miles, guys. So, I'm in a conference. The guy up in front of me is from the oil industry. He says, oh, we only have a footprint out to 1 kilometer, right? 1 kilometer, it's a little more than half a mile. And how do we mitigate and monitor for the impact? We have people on the ship like this, looking out onto the water. No self-respecting marine mammal will come within miles of that ship. They don't see anything. There's no impact. We don't see any blood on the water. We don't see any animals running away. They're 1 mile is less than 1 pixel in the screen. This is the scale we're talking about. Now, I don't have enough time. I'd love to keep going because I could talk to you about this all night. This is low frequency, long wavelengths, great area. Now go up into the higher frequencies. The animals that are using echolocation to find food. These animals use sound for all the basic functions of life. Communication, navigation, predator detection, social networking, right? Everything is based on acoustics. And what are we doing? We're hammering with these sounds. Baffin Bay, we've now tracked, seismic operations in 100% ice conditions. They have an icebreaker in front of the ship. It's setting off an explosion. And then when I asked people, who gave them was it the Danes, the Norwegians, the Brits? Who gave them a license to shoot up? They're within 500 miles of the North Pole. It's like, we didn't know anybody was up there. They're out of sight, out of mind. Anyway, I know I have to stop. I'd love to keep going.
So here you heard from 4 people who all unite themselves for the love of our planet and who want to make a difference in protecting the species. We talked about biodiversity. In '92, we had the Convention of Biodiversity signed together with the Declaration of Rio. Not one country since then has kept their biodiversity at the same level. It all went into decline. So we all use our tools or instruments to talk to humans because our lifestyles are killing the very livelihood we're living on. This has never been recorded in history. Humans are so ignorant that they prefer to continue to get profits, short-term profits, and not like the indigenous people think the generations, 7 generations down. So thank you for being here tonight, and a wonderful round of applause for Ian Rowan and Martin Nweeia and Chris Clark.
Hi everybody. Before we go, my name is Nweeia. I'm currently serving as president of the Explorers Club. And first of all, yes, we definitely want to have you back. We'll do part 2. In fact, everyone get out the phones right now. Let's maybe put a date together. So we'll pick something that's far enough out so you can plan. I'm so sorry you couldn't see the whole movie because we've been cooking this night up for a while. I'm delighted to see you as part of Martin's and Chris's talks. These are topics and issues that our members and our guests care so much about. About a month ago, our mutual friend and colleague Adam Ravish was right up here at this very podium showing us some sneak peeks of new narwhal behavior. And almost 20 years ago, a mutual friend of ours, Katie Payne, was right at this podium talking about whales and elephants and biodiversity. So this is something that's very dear to our hearts. This is also a transition of sorts for us. If you note these miraculous primate paintings, believe it or not, they're paintings, not photographs. They'll be coming down next week when we transition into Oceans Week. So I couldn't think of a better way for us all to segue into that. As you know, June 8th is World Oceans Day. We have an entire plan with everybody from Sylvia Earle to New Arnold, Schwarzenegger, Free Film, to being it. Fantastic's got all the things. But we'll be running programs all week. We welcome you all to those. A lot of them are free. I can't express enough our thanks to you for this evening. I'm serious about having another night, so please keep an eye. We'll figure out a time that works, and love it when these different disciplines come together also, because it really enriches the experience. And obviously, we'll care about a lot of this we can hear you songs tonight. I think we have certificates of appreciation for being here tonight. So, you all, our presenters, fantastic. So, Chris is back there. We have one for you, Pamela, so you got to come up, Chris.
Cheers, that's nice.
I know you're Ian because lots of stuff. Please come back, but again, we'll definitely have another night for you guys.